So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Insights with Avas. So today's topic is intervention techniques and strategies. So let me take this opportunity to give a warm welcome to Shubhra Shankar Vinay, who will be presenting the webinar today. A small introduction about Shubhra. She has a master's in audiology and speech language pathology. She is also certified in lactation and infant feeding. So her core specialties include speech language disorders in children with special needs. She also takes a keen interest in helping parents support the communication development of children. So she is a consultant. Currently, she is a consultant at Asha Bangalore. So we are very happy to have you, Shubhra. We welcome you here. Thanks for taking the time to join us today. So before I hand it over to you, yes. So before I hand it over to you, let me tell everyone that there will be a Q&A session towards the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat at that time, and Shubhra will be able to address it then. So over to you, Shubhra, now. I'll share my screen.
Yes. Thank you, Kalaivani. Thank you so much, Team Avas, for giving me this opportunity to share a few things that I know to help parents out there. So parents, please feel free to put out your questions out there. And if there are any fellow speech language pathologists, today let us all try together put our hands to help out the parents with their queries. So feel free to even put out your opinions, your answers, your suggestions too. Okay. So before I start off with the presentation, I also would like to say, if there are any mistakes, if you find any, if you are unclear about anything, please do let me know. I'm open to feedback. I'm also keen to learn along with you as parents, because I know as parents you have a real hands-on job to do, and you are learning, and you have very, very valuable experience in your hand happening right now with you. All right, so with that note, let me just switch off my video. I will switch it on in between in order to demonstrate a few things and keeping it a little interesting as much as possible. Okay, all right. So today's topic of mine is intervention techniques and strategies for speech and language development. So today, whatever we are going to be talking about would be not only for development of speech as such, but it is also for development of communication. It is, you can even apply these techniques in the non-verbal aspect. That is, if a child has not yet communicating verbally, that is in speech, then this can be used to, this can be used to teach communication for the child in any other mode. All right. Okay. So with that, let us start off. Next slide, please. Kalevani. Next slide. Could you hear me? Okay, thank you. Yeah. Can you go to the first slide? Right. So when we are talking about speech, language, and communication, just like in the earlier, earlier slide, the previous slide, please. Uh, in the earlier presentation by Anandita, it was very beautiful presentation that she had done, which is about to bust myths on AAC. So in alternative modes of communication. So in her presentation too, she had beautifully explained about how what is speech, language, and communication, how they are interdependent, and at the same time how they are very different from a speech therapist point of view. So in communication, so I'll not go much in detail about it. Her link is there on YouTube. If you can ask the team Avaz, they will definitely help you out. Okay. So just giving a brief about, just giving it briefly, communication basically is of two modalities. I mean, it's a mode to communicate. It is to express one's thoughts, feelings, and emotions to the opposite person in a way that is understood by the other person. So that is where the communication is complete. It has to be put forth in a manner in which the opposite person or the listener or the person who's receiving the message is able to understand what you have been able to convey. So that is communication in all its mean, it's in its entire sense is. So there are many methods of communicating. It could be verbal communication and non-verbal communication. So in Anandita's presentation, it's much more dealt in deep with verbal communication in simple manner. If I say, it is to be speech. Non-verbal communication is more to do with your body language, with your gestures, with pictures. So in a very, very simple manner is where I'm explaining. So then communication to complete, one way is to use language. So language is a good medium to communicate, both verbally as well as non-verbally. So in a language, what is exactly language from a speech therapist point of view? It is nothing but a set of symbols and sounds that is shared between two people. So today I'm talking to you in English. Okay, so if you also understand as a listener who is who understand English, then your and my communication gets complete. But if you knew English and was to talk German or say French or say, Tamil, of course, there could be some listeners who know Tamil, who could know different languages. So when there are two different languages, then communication can become difficult. There could be a breakdown in communication as well. So it is very important that the set is present in the speaker. The same set is also there in the listener for the communication to be complete. Okay, so now when it comes to this is about language. Okay, so I said there are different languages: English, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam, Hindi, all right, Gujarati, Marathi, all are different sets of language. Okay, they are different languages. All right, so if two people have the same language share, then communication gets completed. Now, this language can be spoken. So, as a speech therapist, if we had to assess speech of a child, then we will be particularly assessing only the oral ability, or as I said, speech is defined as the modification of air from the lungs to the level of lips. All right, you can only speak when there is air in your lungs. You cannot speak when there is no air in the lungs. All right. So, and that too, when you can speak only when you are able to exhale. So, when you're breathing in, you try to speak, it will not be very clear. Okay. So, if you have to have clear speech, first thing we'll have to do is breathe in And then while exhaling is where you speak. Okay, so when you're exhaling, the air enters into your voice box or your laryngeal area where your voice gets produced, and from there it enters your oral cavity or your nasal cavity where your resonance and your voice becomes louder, as well as you're able to move different parts of your mouth. Okay, the different structures in your mouth to produce different speech sounds. Okay, so therefore uh, this coordination is of different muscles together to produce different speech sounds. Okay, it happens very automatic. It happens in split seconds. All right, and the coordination of all of these muscles, imagine they are all taking place in such a small time. Okay, so what happens is basically to do this kind of a coordination, to do this kind of understanding, it seems very seamless to us because we do it day in day out, day in day out. So there is a lot of practice, but for a small child who is learning to speak, coordinating these muscles are not going to be easy. So therefore, telling speak child, speak child, speak is going to be very, 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 very pressurizing. Okay. So therefore, that is the reason we as speech language pathologists, as much as possible, we deal with communication. We want the child to communicate independently. We wouldn't want the child to communicate, always while speaking. It can be in any other mode. For all you know, even as us normals are also using different modes of communication. We are showing our facial expressions, we are moving our hands while talking. Okay, we have our body language. When we are talking aggressively, you raise your voice, you start widening your eyes. Okay, let me just switch on my video here to explain. All right, so basically what happens is, okay, start my video. Yes, you're able to see me? Yes. Okay. So basically, when you're angry, you widen your eyes, you are like, you're angry, your hands get very tense, and these are the facial expressions you have. When you're joyful, you have a smile on your face, you are looking for a beautiful day ahead, and you're walking all joyfully and talking joyfully, right? So this is what I'm talking about to be the non-verbal part of communication. So I'm going to stop my video there. All right. So now, once you go to a speech therapist, they will start doing your assessment. Once you have your diagnosis, uh, immaterial of your diagnosis. If the child is at a certain, if it is delayed speech and language, if it is, or a deviant speech and language, or if it is inadequate speech and language, or if it is any mode. There are certain techniques that are very commonly used. There are certain terminologies that are commonly used by people in order to, by the therapist while demonstrating or while teaching, which you as parents can use it at home. Okay. So next slide, please. So considering now your diagnosis is done, you know what is happening now. So the next point will happen. The speech language pathologist may say, okay, now we have to start therapy. So therapy means we speech therapists are not going to do miracles in making the child speak. Okay, all we do is we use scientific and evidence-based practice. We use these scientific and evidence-based practice where we have seen scientifically research has been carried out on these techniques, and then they show in that states that these techniques show improvement in certain areas, then accordingly we would do that. All right, so these are scientific and evidence-based practice. All right, please remember, we speech therapists do not do miracles. All right, next slide, please. So what are the techniques? I'm just going to name them for now and slowly take to each of it in a very brief manner. Okay. Techniques are modeling, echoing, demonstration of actions, commands, binary choice making, expansion both semantically and syntactically, semantic cueing, prompting, shaping, heading, sentence completion, error identification, sentence rearrangement, and storytelling. Okay, so these are the names of the techniques, and you might see that you might have even experienced as parents that some of them are being used by the speech therapist when they are trying to explain you. They might say, prompt here, oh, model this, echo this, make a choice, ask the child to make a choice. So these are different. The child is able to identify his errors. Oh, good. Now let us allow the child to complete the sentences, try and create situations. So these are, command to the child. Does the child follow command? So these have been quite a few terminologies that are used in our day-to-day life as a speech therapist, which you also as parents would have noticed us using. All right, expand the sentences. So these are some of the terminology. So now let's go one by one to understand what each of it means. Next slide, please. Yeah. So the first technique is modeling. All right. So here nobody is going to wear small clothes. Nobody is going to wear any, very beautiful clothes and model in front of the child. It is basically trying to teach the child how we as adults are communicating and how they can just copy us and do in a similar manner, so that they can get by with their needs. They can make the other person understand what they are going through just the way we adults do. All right. So please remember, when you're using this technique, there are certain prerequisites that need to be in place. One is, please remember the child's ability, his or her memory span. Okay. If the child's memory span is around only one word, then keep to that one word ability only. If the child's ability to remember 2 to 3 words, then keep it to the level of 2 to 3 words. You can go to the level of 2 to 3. Okay. So accordingly to the child's memory span, you can go ahead and use this particular technique either to make the child say one word, or communicate that one word, or communicate the 2 to 3 words or phrases or sentences. Okay, and this is based on a prerequisite skill called as imitation skill. Imitation is nothing but copy action. Okay, they are called as copy action, or imitation. Basically what you do is what I do. All right, if you're going to raise your hand, I'm going to raise my hand. So that is how is imitation work. So there are 3 types of modeling: antecedent modeling, sequential modeling, and discriminative modeling. So antecedent modeling is where before the child says anything, all right, even before you give the opportunity to the child to say anything, the mother or the caretaker is uh, showing the child exactly how to do. So here I'm going to switch on my video. Basically, if the child has to say ta, okay, you have shown a child a very desirable object. Okay, I'm not going to say chocolate. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to say it is a toy. All right, it's a very lovely toy, very desirable toy for the child. Okay, so now when you hold out, do you want this? And when you have just asked, do you want this? And the child says yes, or, just goes on to grab anything. Before that, the opposite side, if the mother is asking, then hopefully the father or the grandmother or even the brother or a sister can help out the child by saying, give. All right, or say ta in Indian languages. Okay, and then you keep. Okay, as a mother, you will give the child who is asking ta, not to the child who is not asking. Okay, only to the child who is asking. All right. So this is antecedent modeling, and then comes you keep another toy and you say, do you want this? And then the child who is supposed to say then says same action in a same manner, or even says sa, go ahead and give it. Okay, so this is antecedent modeling, where the modeling takes place, or say the demonstration takes place before the child gets to do it, before the child is given the opportunity. Okay, now sequential technique is where do you want this toy? The child has just come and grabbed and gone. All right. But once the child is gone and sat, all right, you're going to go near the child and show the sibling or show the other person and say, do you want this toy? And that person comes and says, ta. All right. And then you give it. That becomes a sequential modeling. All right. So it's like, grabbing is not acceptable. Asking is acceptable. So this is one of a very common techniques used by our speech therapists, and it works wonders. It works wonders. Now, talking about discriminative modeling. So here, what we are going to be doing is, one is showing an incorrect response as well as correct response, just to give an idea, okay, which is acceptable. All right, this can be used. All right, now say for example, your child with autism or with special needs is sitting next to you. You put out the toy again, all right, and you ask the other people, okay, and say, who wants this toy? So one comes and grabs it and goes away. The other one comes and asks star. All right, you can use this even on a video. You can record it on a video where the child once comes and gets it, and the same child comes and says star, so that once you play it back to them, you're doing a discriminative modeling. So you are giving an opportunity for the child to understand which is right, which is wrong, and understand by themselves. So there's a huge big yes for discriminative modeling, is because they get to know, they understand, oh, this is not right, that is right. Okay, so otherwise, if they are not able to do it, as a parent, you can guide them saying, I didn't like this when you did this, I did not like it, but I really loved this. I really loved this. Okay, so when they do something good, you let them know they did good. When they did something not so good, you let them know not so good. Okay, all right, let me just switch off the video here. Now, next slide, please. So this is about modeling, okay? The main technique that we really use. One of the main techniques, actually. Next slide, please. Echoing. Okay. Here, before we go ahead, since I'm aware of the fact that in Awaaz, most of the parents who are trying to use Awaaz could also be parents of children with autism. So here we are not trying to, if the moment the word eco comes around, echolalia is also another word that might come into your mind. And we speech therapists, at least I would not like to shun away the echolalia. Rather, I would be preferring to identify its purpose and keeping its purpose. Okay. One of the purposes of echolalia is to even ask question or answer the question. Now, say for example, do you want milk? And then the child saying, do you want milk? This is an echolalia. Here, the child might be repeating. One possible purpose could be to say yes. Instead of saying, yes, I want milk, it would be easier for the child, or the child just puts it back in the same manner. Okay, do you want milk? All right. So similarly, when we do it in opposite, say take your turn. All right. Say for example, the child says, do you want milk? And the parent can always ask a question. What? Do you want milk? Do you want milk to drink now? So this is how you use an eco technique. So how your kids have been doing eco with you, you do an eco with them to understand or to even pinpoint, okay, saying that they know the answer but not telling the answer. Like say for example, a lot of parents have been using how are you, I am fine. The child does know I am fine but just doesn't express it. So what you can do is, if the child says how are you back again to you, then you can say, what, how are you? It can be a way to let the child know that shouldn't have been spoken. Say I, and then I'm fine will come around. Okay, so this is a way to let the echoing can be a very good example to show a mirror to the child utterances. So whatever the child says, you repeat back as a parent. Okay, so that you get the child understands where they have gone wrong, and you repeat it in a manner that you haven't understood their sentence. Like say for example, a child also would have said blah, blah, blah. Okay, and for some question they would have answered blah, blah, blah. And then you wouldn't have understood it. So there is no problem if you also say blah, 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 in that rising in a questioning manner, and then they understand, oh, mama has not understood what does this mean, so they try to attempt to tell that. If not, similarly, if they have come and thrown a particular picture at you, okay, so and then you throw back the picture saying, what, you throw a picture, I throw a picture, oh, there, and then you wait. So the next time the child brings the picture and gives it to you or shows it to you, so this can also be used in your non-verbal communication too. Okay. So next slide, please. Actions. Okay. Here, demonstration of actions and modeling could be a huge confusion. Okay, in modeling, you can even model actions. You can even model, utterances. That is, how to speak, what to speak, when to speak can be modeled. So when I'm using the demonstration of actions, with respect as a separate technique to be dealt, because I would want it to be associated with the situation. All right, modeling is with the situation that happens. Okay, you model what to say, how to say, or how to communicate, what to communicate as per the situation. All right, now say for example, as I said, who wants this, you are creating a situation. Okay, whereas demonstration of actions is, show me how you brush your teeth, how do you take a bath, show me the action, how does mama say keep quiet, how does mama say go to your room, how does mama show how do you wear your clothes. So these are demonstration of actions. Okay, and here it is more to do with what can I say, here it is demonstration of actions in the sense I'm doing it with the child. Okay, I'm doing it with the child. Modeling is more to do with me. Here I'm doing it with the child. So demonstrating, you put on your shirt from the top, okay, and then you put on your hand. All right, so you are going to pull out the child's hands from both the sleeves. Okay, so this is basically demonstration. All right, when you're doing modeling, what I'm going to do is I am going to wear my t-shirt, so I'm going to wear it from top, I'm going to put my hand from the sleeve, and I'm going to put another hand from the, so I'm going to model. I'm not demonstrating particularly, but I'm modeling him, I'm showing him on me. Demonstrating is I'm showing it on him. Okay, how do you brush your teeth? Now say ah, you go behind, or I say ah, go behind here, and then say e, and then you do it in the front. So this is while you're holding them and getting them to do it, that's demonstrating. If you are doing it and showing it to them, that's modeling. All right. Okay. I'm going to switch off my video again. Next slide, please. Yes, commands. Oh, wow. How much we as parents love to command. Commands are the sentences which direct the person to carry out certain actions. Now, please, please keep an open mind when I'm talking about how commands can be used. Okay. Commands basically for me is not only the child receiving commands from you, commands can also be a great way to express. Okay, we have to express their actions, to express what they want to. They are very good opportunities. Okay, so what I would prefer and how do I use commands in my sessions is basically, if I tell the child sit down, okay, I also give the child an opportunity to tell me sit down. All right, so it has to be in both ways. All right, so if at all I tell the child go get, go get the ball, I once want a child also to tell me you go get the ball. All right, so it is a great opportunity to be playing turn taking, to give an opportunity for the child to communicate. And how in a non-verbal child you can use avas, or you can use any form of alternative mode of communication. It could be due to with pictures, or it could be in writing, or it could be in gesture, any manner. If the child wants, can be given an opportunity to command you once in a while. All right, go get the plate. All right, so they can tell their siblings, go get the plate, by showing get the plate picture, get the glass. Okay, so that they get to see that they are the director to setting of the table for the dinner. They can become the director to set the table. So they have to tell the sibling to go get the plate, go get the glasses, okay, and then go get the spoons, go get the bowls. All right, so these could be some that can be kept. So commands are a great way of creating opportunities for the child to take some control over their environment. Okay, all right. Now, if you can here, before we go ahead with other techniques, I also want to, I'm putting this in the middle of the presentation mainly because what happens, these are the techniques which, these are just techniques to teach expression, to teach understanding of language. But to get to this level, okay, there are a lot of prerequisites that have to be in its place. All right, the child should have that cognitive ability. One. Second, the child should have attention ability. Two. Third, the child should be able to imitate at least a bit. And fourth and foremost important is communicative intent. Okay, communicative intent is the most important thing. Now when I talk about communicative intent, it is the need, the desire to let the other person know that they need something, they want something, they want it in a certain manner maybe, or they don't even want it. So that need has to be there for them to communicate. Okay, one, again I would repeat, one is attention. Second would be the second could be the fourth one was the communicative intent. I'm really sorry I wasn't able to go back with your chat. You can always go back to the recording once you get it. All right, I'm really sorry about that. Okay, so these were the four main things. Okay, so once these things are in its place, all right, the child should be aware of his or her environment. All right, the child's need to communicate should be there. All right. The third is how are these four things can come into picture is a routine for a child can always help the child to calm down. Every day following different routines doesn't help a child to cope up with his or her daily needs. All right, if it is the time to get up at a certain time, the child should be up by certain time. If the child has to have breakfast at a certain time, it is better off that the child has his or her breakfast at that time. Okay, so considering all these four things, all these things, the child should have a routine. Please keep up the routine. Child should be able to, have be aware of their surroundings. Allow them to have that awareness of their surroundings. Okay, even sensorially as well. Okay, there could be autistic children or ADHD children do have a lot of sensory issues. So allow them to calm down, give them that ample time to calm down. So these are certain tips that I am mentioning apart from that is there in this presentation. Okay, these are certain tips and tricks maybe. All right, now anything that can be done within the daily routine. Now if these techniques can be done, that is all is needed. These techniques definitely can be done. We can do modeling for a child when we are brushing our teeth and showing the child to brush their teeth. Okay, the child needs to take a bath, then we can demonstrate and help the child understand how to take a bath and what vocabulary goes into what. Third thing is commanding. You are allowing the child. Just now I gave an example saying how we can use it in our daily life, allowing the child to set the dining table. All right, and how verbally or non-verbally also it can be done. Okay, now with this in mind, let us move on in the further of my presentation. Next slide, please. Yes, binary choice making. Now, once the child gets confused or is unclear with respect to what they want, okay, this here again, I'm going to be starting my video. Um, uh, what exactly happens is when a child, say, first form of intent to communicate can also be if the child wants something, the child drags the parents and goes and shows shows the place where their desirable objects are usually kept. Okay, so when that happens, okay, you basically try and see, okay, does the child need this dabba? Does this child do you want this or do you want this? If you want this, you know what is the name, or you don't know, then you tell what is the name. Okay, if you know the new word. Okay, so this is a very good opportunity for a child to know new words or even use the opportunity as a parent to tell them the old words as well as the new words. Okay. All right, so this is where a binary choice really helps. Sometimes a binary choice even also helps in giving a choice like, do you want a pen to be kept on the table or under the table? Do you want the ball inside the bucket or outside the bucket? So these are some of the skills that can be included even in a binary choice making, okay, for them to express. All right, next slide, please. Expansion. Okay. Now, as a speech language pathologist, if anybody would be here, they would say expansion is more semantic. Semantic is meaning related. Okay. So basically, what we are trying to do is we show a car and then we expand it by saying blue car. And then we further expand it by saying fast blue car. Okay. So then slowly we will start even extending, like using the grammar. All right. So in the grammar part is like, this is a fast blue car. Okay, so this is how an expansion. So you can always start with something that a child really loves. Okay, the main motivators for the child to do anything, anytime, you start off with them. Okay, and then from that you start with, then you move on to the other aspects. So in non-verbal, how do you use expansion? So when they show you a card of say car, okay, then you ask them blue or red or yellow or green. Okay, so then they are going to be joining two pictures together. So say red car, okay, and then you say okay, red car. So then you say, oh, okay, white car. So this is how you try to give an expansion. This one goes fast, this one goes slow. So then they would say slow white car, or so say fast red car. Okay, so that they will race it again. So you can use a racing activity. You can even use it for your daily routine. Now, how do you put it on a daily routine? Say you have made some custard. Okay, yummy, yummy custard. Now you're going to be asking, should you want custard? All right, and then the child says, yes. Okay, but then after that, do you want fruits on the custard? Yes, fruit custard. Okay, and then do you want some cream to go with it? Then you would say cream fruit custard. So that is how. So if you can add three words like this, it would be a lot easier for the child. So you give them a lot of questions, like what do you want next, what do you want next. So once you know that the child is able to give you one card and show, okay, this is what I want, and you want the child to combine two cards, three cards, slowly coming into a picture. I want, this. I want cream fruit custard. Or say, I want fruit custard. Okay. I don't want custard. I want cream custard. So you can make permutation, combination, and you can use it. All right. So this is another way, but it becomes very important once the child has achieved one card ability, that is one word expression. Okay. Next slide, please. Semantic cueing. Okay. Semantic cueing basically means nothing else other than to create situations, create opportunities. You're going to be creating opportunities so that the child comes out with an expression. It has a communicative intent. Okay. Say, for example, there could be a child who loves cars. There could be a child who loves a particular something to eat. Okay. So what you do is you are going to be going around to everybody, giving them that favorite item. All right. So here you're creating a situation, but don't give it to the child. Don't give it to the child. So you're creating that intent. Use the intent. All right. And then see what they have got to do. How would they try to express? What do they want? Okay. So you are basically creating, giving cues to the child in a meaningful manner, in a situational manner, in a contextual manner. Okay. So that the child elicit, you're going to be eliciting the response. You're not going to be establishing. You're going to be eliciting. So the child knows what they need to do, but they haven't been doing very well. So you're going to create situation after situation after situation, so that they keep coming out with a lot of words. Okay, they can either come out verbally, non-verbally, any manner is okay, as long as they are expressing, create opportunities. So these are nothing but semantic cueing is one, contextually you're creating. Okay. Second is spontaneously it gets created all by itself. Okay. Third can also be where the child, there could be something that has happened that can trigger. The trigger points, basically, you're going to be using the trigger points. All right. So next slide, please. Now traffic. Shaping. Okay. So shaping is very common in terms of if there is a non-verbal gestures. Okay. And a gestural communication or even verbal communication, shaping becomes a very beautiful technique to use if there is an intent already there and they are expressing it in a certain manner. So you're going to be shaping that behavior. All right. So you're going to give it a shape. How? Now, one way is to see what motor activities are taking place while expressing that. Is it acceptable? Not acceptable. If the language that is coming out of the words that are coming out are inappropriate or appropriate. So once they are a little approximate, if they say, like, say, for example, if the child wants color pencils to color, all right, suddenly the child starts using color, color, I want colors. Okay, so here you want to say, I want colors, mama. Or mama, give me color. Okay, so whatever manner you would want them to express, shape that. If they are telling it out in a sinful manner, ask them to acceptable for you. So shape according to that. Okay, if at all they don't come with any response, then shaping becomes difficult. That is where semantic cueing will help. It will come out with one utterance, and once that utterance is out, you can shape that utterance a little bit more. Okay. Simple way of shaping is also if a child tries to grab a particular item, what you do is you turn that hand and say, make them say, okay, ask them to give. Okay, ask them to do this request. So this is a motoric shaping. Here you are actually moving the child's motor movements and making it in a certain manner, acceptable manner. So that is what is shaping. Right. Next slide, please. Next is prompting fading. Prompting, basically here what we are going to do is prompt the child. Okay, like say for example, if the child wants to ask, you are just first few times you're going to be shaping. Okay, you're going to be shaping, and after that you probably would want just to prompt the child by lifting the hand like that and asking. All right, you can even prompt by moving them towards the picture. Like say for example, they are standing in one part of the room and the other part of the room is where the picture is. Ask them, you slowly glide them to that position, to the place where the picture is, so that they pick up the picture and give it to you, so that it becomes easier. So that is also a prompting. Okay, like when you're talking about shaping, if the child is throwing tantrums over tantrums, you are literally picking up the child, putting in front of the card, okay, making the child come and give it to you is also a way of shaping. Okay, so these are some methods where you can use in the non-verbal setting as well. Okay, so that the child learns that this is necessity. This is a necessity for the child to communicate. Okay, so prompts is there are different prompts. There are full prompts, there are partial prompts. Okay, there are various gestures that you can teach them to prompt. Okay, you can prompt them for them to do. But once you have started prompting, it becomes very important that you also fade them away. Okay, because you don't want the child to be dependent communicator. You want the child to be an independent communicator. Okay, so you would want to fade away the prompts once you have established, once you know that the child can do it. Fade away your prompts, allow the child to come by their own. Okay. All right. Next slide, please. Yes, sentence completion. Okay, now that once the child, how to learn fading. Fading is usually done by people who have started prompting. Okay, so now that you've started prompting and the child has become prompt dependent by any chance, then you would have to learn to fade it by giving ample time for the child to initiate by themselves. Okay, like say for example, sometimes if the child has to just, if the child has really, all this while you have been pulling up the child's hand and asking for give, next time you're just going to touch the child's hand, you're just going to tap the child's hand like this to ask. All right, or you're just going to turn like that. Okay, you're just going to turn like that. Once that turning is become an this thing, then you're going to just tap on their hand like this and show them to turn. Okay, so then after that you tap only once and show them to turn, and then you're going to wait for them to come on their own so that they do it by themselves. If they don't, then you would have to tell them, you will have to wait and wait and wait and wait until they do it. If you feel that they're very adamant, all right, so you need to have that ample time to be given. Okay. All right, so sentence completion is a nice technique to expand or extend. Okay, and teaching the child what goes after. Does the simple sentence get formed? Simple sentence, grammatically correct sentence gets formed. Okay, it is basically I am Shubhra. All right, this is my laptop. Okay, so the sentences, correct sentences. So even before you want to do the sentence completion, there is another technique that you can do, which is called a sentiment. So could you can also use sentence completion in the form of a prompt as well. Like say for example, I want, and the child gets to complete. Okay, so this is also a sentence completion. So this is where you're looking for changing from one word answers to multi-word answers using this particular technique. Next slide, please. Yes, error identification. It is so much more important. I think I have to emphasize here as to how important it is to give a feedback to a child. Okay, feedback becomes a very important aspect, that is to understand what they have been doing or what others have been doing, whether it is correct or incorrect. Okay, so for them to judge by themselves, that is whether it is correct or in, error identification is a great tool. Similarly, your discriminative modeling is a great technique, and your binary choice making is a great technique. So these are all the techniques which actually makes the child judge which is right, which is wrong, which is it that I want, which is it that I don't want. Okay, so these are some things that the child is to have. As I said, the cognitive ability is a prerequisite. This is a cognitive ability that is a prerequisite, and it has to be established at every step. All right, so in error identification, it could be with their own utterances or their own listening. Now say for example here, if a child has come to you with with a wrong picture, all right, I'm going to explain this technique with a wrong picture. Okay, you give them corresponding to that wrong picture. Now say for example, if the child wanted biscuits, but the child has come with a packet of chips, picture of chips, You're going to give the child chips. No giving biscuits thinking that I know what the child wants. No. Give the child the chips. Let the child realize what they asked is what they get. Okay. Similarly, what they say is what they will get. All right. So get them to understand that correlation so that they are able to judge, okay, is this what I want? And for all you know, if the child is okay with chips, the child will go ahead and have it. So one way it's easier for you. The other way, it can be a good chance that the child can go back, keep the chips picture, bring you the cookies picture and give you the cookies. Okay. And you can give them the cookies. So this is another way. Second thing is if they give you a glass instead of a plate, give them water or give them juice, give them milk. All right. But if they mean to get plate, then you wait for them. You wait for them. Wait for them to go back, correct their error and get back to you. Similarly, if somebody else also does something wrong in the family, then they will also have the same. Like say, for example, if Papa has asked saying, okay, give me knife, give me fork instead of spoon. All right. Or go right by showing left hand. All right. Then there also the child will have to do accordingly. If the child said right and you're going left, the right answer, please do not do it. Do the wrong one. Let the child understand. Okay. All right. So that is what is error identification. Next slide, please. Question. Okay. Here, when we are talking about questions to answer is what we predominantly talk about. Okay. Questions can also be a great opportunity for the child to express. Where is my ball? What is this? When do we go to Ajji's house? Or when do we go to my grandparents' house? Okay. So let them ask you questions. Tell them that you are going tomorrow, or tell them you are going. Wait for them to ask when. Okay. Or say, for example, if you have given some desirable sweet or some desirable khara, okay, that is a spicy item. Okay. You have given them. Wait for them to ask more. Let them question. Let them ask. Okay. So that becomes an easier thing. Ask them to name. You also ask them, they will also ask you. Let it be a two-way traffic. That's when communication is complete and is a blissful thing. All right. So questions are both very effective tool to elicit a language, or it could be an yes or no question. It could be a naming response question, or it could be an open-ended question also. How do we do this? Okay. How comes much later. First is what, then is where, then is when, then is who, or rather what and who usually comes around together. Where, when, how, and then comes why. Next question. Sorry, next slide, please. Sentence rearrangement. Sentence, I hope if anybody remembers in our English question papers when we were kids, we used to have the sentence rearrangement questions. This is a great technique to teach grammar, to create a syntactically correct sentences, to teach the child meaningful, grammatically correct sentences. So this is also a great tool to teach the child how to move from one word answers to 2 to 3 word answers. So this can be a good tabletop activity. It can also be done on a daily basis with your daily routine. Okay, it can be done in any manner. All right, so that it is it is you are expanding, you are extending the child's vocabulary, asking them to use different vocabulary, making them say more than one words or expressing more than one words. Then sentence rearrangement can become a great technique. Next technique, please. So, storytelling, yes. Mom, dads, yes, I understand as parents you are tired of telling stories or probably creating stories of, even probably enough of reading the same book over and over again for your child as well. But stories could be a great way to teach them pictures in sequences, how it happens. Also making them understand. Now, when it comes to expression, there could be certain stories that the child really likes. Okay, if that is the case, then what you can do is once you have read out the story, instead of asking them questions where they have to express orally, or even for you to listen to them, understand to them, ask them to turn to that page where the answer is. It could be even pulling it out. Now, as I said just before in questions, what, where, when, how, and why. Okay, what and who, where, when, how, and why. Okay, so when these concepts are coming around, you can, what, who, where is great. But when it comes to how and when, where there are more sentences that a child should express or more words that a child should express, and you know that the child might understand these concepts but may not be able to express, ask them to turn to the page where there is the answer and let them read it out, or let them, you can read it out for them, put it in the form of an answer. All right, so that you understand whether you can go ahead and get them to understand these concepts where they move from one word answers to multi-word answers and they are unable to express it. You can use these storybooks in order to turn the page and show them. All right, okay. So next slide, please. Categorization. Categorization um, is a very good technique, but again here cognitive ability has to be there. All right, but not necessary. As and when the child development is taking place also, you can do this. All right, okay. So here you are trying to teach the child which are the action words, which are the descriptive words. Show me what are the prepositions used, so that in especially this technique, I'm putting it out only for predominantly non-verbal communicators, because when they have a particular pictorial, or say for example when they're doing in gestures, they need to understand the categories of words that they are having in their repertoire, or they know. Okay, some of them are prepositions, some of them are descriptive words, some of them are action words, some of them are nouns. Okay, and even in nouns you have categories as to say food, or the school, or depending upon topic to topic you use. Okay, vegetables, fruits, and everything. So here categorizing words also helps them in understanding how you can pick out these words. All right, in Avaz also you have this particular, you can color code them. You can put action words in the form of blue pictures with a background of blue. Okay, or they can be put into a folder. So these are different varieties where different ways where categorizing the words can take place, and this is very helpful when you're training for non-verbal children to expand their words, to expand their utterances. Okay, their expression basically. Next slide, please. So now we know the techniques. How do we use them? Okay, so these are called as practice trials. Practice trials. How do we practice these techniques? So now that we know these techniques, this can be practiced in the form of randomized versus block trials, or it can be done in the form of mass versus distributed practice. So in randomized versus block trials are nothing but only one goal or one target is carried out. Okay, like say for example, it is usually done when you are introducing non-verbal communication. It is a beautiful method. Okay, because what happens is here you are trying to teach the child very particularly, and you are going to teach only one thing. All right, now say for example, there was one child in my session who used to love rhymes. Okay, so I used to do blocked trials. Okay, by doing only one target. That is, she would come into the session, okay, pick out the music card or the rhymes card and come and give it to me for me to sing her a rhyme, any rhyme. All right, or if it is a particular rhyme, then only that particular card. So pick out one target, and initially with non-verbal communication, that target, which is a big motivator. It is a big motivator. It that the child gets immediate, ready to do it at any point of time, anywhere. Okay, so that becomes the start point, and slowly you can teach every word in the form of block trial as well. So it is good when first learning a skill. So you're teaching your child a communicative skill. Okay, by exchanging a picture or by touching the avas, that one picture on Avas. So here what happens is, let me try and explain it to you. If you're having an Avas design, or even your phone for all that matter, it can contain only one folder and only one item, and that could be the most desirable item of the child. Okay, so if the child wants it whenever, all right, and you as a mother or a father or a caretaker knows that the child wants that, ask the child to show that particular picture to you from the mobile or on the Avas by tapping that particular icon. Okay, so that they tap it and they get it. They tap it and get it. Okay, so there is absolutely it is a very easy thing to do. It is a very safe place to start. Okay, your phones, your picture, or avas, or it could be even a gesture. It could be even a gesture like this, eat, can also be a gesture. Okay, so that is a blocked target. Block trials, those are called as block trials. Random trials are where more than one target is practiced. Okay, and it usually leads to generalization. So here more than one, in the sense I can also be working on ta as well as on showing the action of eating food. So there can be two targets. So this and ta. So there can be two targets and they are practiced in the same activity also. Then it can lead to a lot of generalization. Mass versus distributed practice. In mass practice, what you're going to do is, in the entire 60-minute session, you're going to be doing the same target, or that particular target can be done for 10 minutes in a daily manner also. Now say for example, only eating, okay, it can, if it is a mass practice, say I'm having my breakfast item, okay, and the child has to exchange a picture with me at every spoon feed. So this is going to be a mass practice. Okay, the child is going to exchange the food picture in order to get one spoon, and another same food picture to get next spoon, the same food picture to get the next spoon. So this you will be doing for the entire 60 minutes. So this is going to be a mass practice. Distributed practice is where this particular activity of exchanging the food picture will come only for 10 minutes or 5 minutes, occurs only for 5 minutes, 3 times a day. So only during breakfast, only during lunch, only during dinner. So 5 minutes you are going to practice that exchange and the child getting the food. All right. Then dinner time, exchange, get the food. Okay. So this is going to be the distributed practice. Next slide, please. Distributed practice actually leads to a greater learning because you are also be allowing your child to do that situationally. So obviously there is a better learning. So when you are able to do this kind of practice and now the child has achieved its target with you, okay, as a family member, as a mother or as a father, you have achieved this target. Now it is time to practice the same behavior with others. Since it is pandemic, we are not going to have different settings. We cannot go to school, we cannot go to park, we cannot go anywhere. So practice the same target with other family members in the house. That is possible. So practicing targets with different people, okay, practicing targets in different settings. Let's say once pandemic comes down, then we can also try it out in different settings, or you can take them to their house, like say for example grandparents house if it's possible, or if it's friend's house, then it is, if that is possible, then you move it to different settings. But presently I recommend that during this pandemic, first do it with yourself, allow the same behavior to occur with other family members, and then allow the same behavior to happen in somebody else's house also, or in some other setting as well. So this practice variation also should take place so that it can be generalized, it becomes more real. In real situation, the child will learn how to go about with this particular communications. Let that be questioning, let that be answering, let that be commenting, let that be any form, they will learn to generalize. Okay, they will learn to use it in their real situation, real life situation. Next slide, please. Okay, before going to, yeah, you can move on to the next slide. Let me tell you an example. I have a child who is right now doing a picture exchange communication system. Okay, the child is in actually one picture exchange only. So basically, when I talked about practicing variability, the mother had put the child on a visual schedule only for playtime. Okay, so the child would exchange the pictures only for the playtime. So there used to be 3 pictures in the visual schedule, and the child would go one after the other, exchanging and picking out that particular toys, play with them, and then go to the second picture, give the second picture, pick out a toy, and then again play with the second toy. So doing these things, the child was presently the child was able to do this with only mother. Okay. Now the child is able to do the same with the grandparents. Okay, grandfather, grandmother. So this way the mother was able to get some me time during that play time. The mother and the grandmother and grandfather earlier were not able to manage the kid alone. But now that the child is in this system and they have been able to generalize it with themselves, they now the mother is being able to get some me time. So this is how I'm talking about variability, moving from not just one communicative partner, move it to other family members, and then move it out of the house to different settings as well. Now, when we are doing this, feedback providing is also important. Sometimes there is an intrinsic feedback too happening with their own children. That is, they also start understanding. If you exchange the same pictures with other family members, they also can give. So they are able to understand, okay, so it is not only mama who will be a communicative partner, they will also be able to have brother, sister, father, grandmother, grandfather as a communicative partner. Similarly, extrinsic feedback also becomes important, where the parents can give a feedback regarding the child's performance. Oh, mama can say, oh wow, you were able to get it from papa, very nice. You have been able to get it from your Didi, very good. You've been able to get it from your younger brother, fantastic. So this kind of an extrinsic feedback also means a lot. It can shape the behavior very well. Next. So providing knowledge versus providing results. Now here, providing knowledge and providing results is, of course, when I just talked about, oh, you did it, you were able to get it from Papa without any help. Okay, so that is providing results. Providing knowledge is, give the picture to Papa, Papa will give it to you. Okay, so if the kid comes to you with a picture, or is come to communicate with you, you can always give them a knowledge, saying you can tell others also. So this is providing knowledge, what needs to be done by the child to get it. That is the knowledge given. Results, providing result is, oh, you did it by yourself. They wouldn't, sometimes children realize, sometimes they don't realize. But if they don't realize, if you give a result to them, you show them, oh, you got it from Didi, so that, oh yes, it's not only mama, I don't have to go to mama every time. So that realization can also happen. Okay, so that is what is providing results. So now, how does therapy usually at home can be done? One is, you can give them ample, intense and frequent. You can give them ample repetitions. You will be able to give them ample opportunities. Please give them ample opportunities. Okay, it can be in one manner. It can be right from one session per week. You will be able to do one target once a week. Great, do it. Okay, please don't feel guilty. I am able to do it only once a week, ma'am. I'm not able to do it every day. Don't please take it on yourself too much, because we completely understand right now there is you taking care of yourself, taking care of the house, taking care of your responsibilities, other responsibilities along with your kid. So please pick out your goals very realistically. Try to work them within your daily routine of your child, so that you are not getting overwhelmed. Okay, if it is a younger child with shorter attention span and if there is increased fatigue, then do it frequently every day for 5 minutes. That's more than enough. That's more than enough. That would be very, very helpful for the child as well. Okay, so I think ultimately I'm coming out with this saying, not just clinical practice. This can be done even after pandemic is over, even when you are able to go back to your sessions from your therapist. Okay, apart from clinical practice, you can do home practice in this same manner, so that you can get your best outcomes for your child. All right. So next slide. Is there a slide? I'll just give you a take home messages, I guess. Yes, take home messages. Please tap on your communicative intent of your child. Okay, every child's behavior, if there is a look for, is it something that the child is trying to express to you, trying to communicate to you with that behavior? Please have an eye out for it. Second thing, these techniques are very, very helpful and becomes very easy to use if you have a routine. Please maintain a routine. Okay, allow all family members to follow that same routine in a very minimal changes, of course. Say for example, if this is the time to eat, everybody will come and sit and eat. But if it is the time for the child to be fed, not necessarily every child is being fed in the same manner. Okay, Papa might use a lot more sounds, or in a very playful manner. Mama can also be using it in a very different manner. So I love that a little differences. Okay. A fourth thing is, please create opportunities for the child to express. Allow the child to command you sometimes. Allow the child to question you sometimes. Okay, give ample time at the once you have given that opportunity, give an ample time for the child to take that opportunity and express. Okay, so I hope this has been very helpful.
Thanks, Shubhra, for the lovely session. I think you explained a lot of fundamental terms that a lot of parents, some of them they may have been familiar with, but it was nice of you to explain with a lot of examples, particularly the cream custard, the fruit custard, how these strategies can be applied in everyday life. So thanks for this wonderful session.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you again for giving me this platform to reach out to more parents who are in need. I hope that it is helpful.
So we have gone a little bit beyond time.
Yes, I'm so sorry.
If
But nevertheless, I'm available here for question and answer.
Okay, so in that case, we'll just take a few questions. So some people have already put in a few questions. So one
Yeah,
is,
let me just read out. Language is grammatically correct, comprehension is less. If I tell any story and later ask questions, very few answers. What should I do? Please suggest. Okay, my 8-year-old son is bilingual, can speak and understand Hindi and English, but few issues. His speech is unclear, language is not grammatically correct, and comprehension is less. Okay, so here I suggest that we pick out the practice trials. I think this question came around before the practice trials. When you're doing your practice trials, pick out one goal or two goals maximum, work on that very well, and then slowly you move on from there to the next target. Like, say for example, if you're going to be working only on t sound, then just pick out the places where in your daily life do you use t sound more. Okay, so that it is easier. He can try and correct himself. You can give him different feedbacks can be given. You can give him an auditory feedback. You can give him error identification. You can give him, these are different techniques that you can use for him to listen to his own speech. That is also possible. So see what can be done. I prefer that the child goes in for a random and distributed practice. You pick out two goals so that it is not boring for you, but at the same time, a distributed practice on each of those sounds can be very helpful. Language is not grammatically correct. So first find out where exactly are they going wrong. Is there a pattern to it? If there is a pattern to it, then probably we can, correct by teaching them the correct pattern. All right. So that is one question.
there was also this question about fading. So we had explained a little bit about fading.
Yes.
Somebody
How do we fade? Yes. How do we fade? Fading becomes very important only if you have started with prompting. Okay. So if prompting has happened, then fading becomes very important for them to become independent communicators. So for first time, if you have taken the child, push the child towards the card so that the child comes, picks up the card and comes and gives it to you. The next time you just give them a verbal prompt. That is another form of a fading from physical prompt. Okay. Verbal prompt, move it to verbal prompt, tell them go get the card. And then, the third time you can just say get the card. And then fourth time you can just say card. And then next time you might have to just look at them and they'll go get the card to you. So this way we can keep fading out so that they become independent communicators by themselves. How to improve comprehension? How to improve comprehension? Okay, here I would like to point one thing is when we are doing comprehension, first please decide on what do you want a child to comprehend. One item or one action or one place kind of a thing, so that it becomes easier for you to highlight as a stimulator. Okay, so that it becomes easier for an child also to listen to you. Now, if you're going to be talking about that word throughout the day, please make it a point as much as possible to put it contextually. But also, when you're putting it out of context, talk slowly, give a lot of gap between one word and the other so that the child gets ample time to process it. Because what happens is not everybody can process it at a speed at which we are talking, not even in my present speed. Okay. Here, if I go get the ball, let's play, come on, let's do it. So it's going to go inside the child's ears, which is very confusing for the child, and the child will just not go ahead to do anything or would do things wrong. So give a good amount of gap between one word to the other. Keep it very simple sentences or a simple phrases, okay, so that the child is able to gather it well. All right. Right
We'll just take
answers very
what,
well, but yes.
yeah.
Last question. Can I take this last question?
Yes, please, Shubhra. And then we can wrap it
Yeah.
up.
Yes. So my son is 4.5 years old, expresses his needs as Amma give, but I'm stuck what to teach him next. He names few things around him. Okay. So here, what to teach him next? So Amma give, nouns are there. Now next teach him verbs, action words. Okay. So here, how do we do? What do we do next? You ask. Amma ask, what do we do next? And then, now come, let's do, okay, brush our teeth, wash your hands, okay, let's take bath. All right. So Amma, let's take bath. Okay, so that is what are we going to do now? Take bath. Okay, so these are the next set of words which we usually bring in the picture after nouns are done. Nouns, and then action words, and then comes your descriptive words: big, small, fast, beautiful, lovely. Okay, all those words. And then comes prepositions, where is on, in, under, okay, inside, outside, all that. Okay. So these are certain a hierarchy that goes by. These are normative patterns. So if you tap into any normal developmental chart of language, they can also help you out with this. Okay. So I guess with that, any normal speech and language development chart, if you can take, where they talk about this language, what topic comes after what topic, then you can have this idea and teach it in the same manner so that you are able to cut across all your topics very well. All your
Thanks, Shubhra.
categories of words very well. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much,
Thanks,
Kalaivan.
Shubhra. Yeah, so thanks for answering all the questions in great detail, and also for a very informative session explaining a lot of these fundamental terms in very simple language. So thanks, Shubhra, for taking the time out of your schedule to conduct this webinar for us. And thanks to all the participants for attending the webinar and asking questions. We will be sharing the recorded webinar and also Shubhra's details, because some people have requested Shubhra's details. We'll be sharing the details in a mail too. Thanks, everyone. Hope you found this
Right.
useful.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody.